Only 5 ever entered. The sinister secrets of the haunted, suffocating cave revealed. Sarah tightened her grip around the steaming coffee pot at the diner. The headlines had been plastered everywhere in this sleepy Ohio town ever since they found those 5 explorers, swallowed whole by the forest. The cave was like a dark mouth, waiting to devour the next unsuspecting team. She could still hear the whispers around the bonfire the other night, laughter trailing into a darkened fear, eyes darting toward the tree line. 5 who entered and never returned, they murmured. It felt like a heartbeat, a sinister pulse throbbing just beneath the surface of this suburban paradise. The dark gray sky choked all warmth from the world outside. Shadows seemed to creep into the corners as she poured another cup for a tired trucker. Her mind drifted back to those neighboring families, the well-manicured lawns, the friendly waves, and the sudden charge of tension when they spoke about the cave. First, they joked, then turned serious, whispering about the sinister occurrences. It was unsettling, and as the diner emptied for the night, that feeling of dread swelled within her like an ocean's tide. One night, she watched Timmy play outside with Ethan, the boy who appeared seemingly out of nowhere. He was charming but strange, a flicker on the edge of reality. The boys were laughing, but the sound was twisted, the echoes like a sinister hum in her bones. The fading light cast long shadows that danced like malicious spirits when combined with the stories of the cave. Suddenly, Timmy's laugh didn't sound like his at all. A chill clawed up her spine, and she turned away, panic simmering in her veins. That night, Sarah lay in bed, her heart hammering. Footsteps had echoed outside, long after Timmy fell asleep. Gathering her courage, she crept to the back door. The night air was thick with an unshakable sense of wrongness. As she peered out, she froze. Symbols had been carved into their old oak tree, thick slashes intertwining like a warning, a beckoning to return to the cave. She felt an icy hand grip her throat. The forest seemed to whisper dark secrets, wrapping around her dread. Desperate for clarity, she visited the town historian, her heart racing with questions. The aged man's face was a roadmap of regrets. The stories he recounted twisted her insides. He warned of the cave's history, brushed aside by the townsfolk, the trusted smiles masking fear. The authorities silenced fear with community bonds, but she knew better now. Something was lurking, watching from the shadows. The tension grew with each twist. The whispers of her neighbors felt less welcoming and more like a tightening noose. She felt the weight of betrayal as friendly faces melted into masks of alarm. Timmy and Ethan seemed drawn closer than ever. A thread of dread laced through her thoughts, and with each day, she became more desperate to protect her son. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the leaf-strewn streets echoed memories of laughter, her grip on reality began to slip. She found an old newspaper clipping buried beneath the clutter in her attic. Crumbling and faded, it told tales of the 5 adventurers, their dreams shattered by the depths of that cave. They had vanished, but what if they hadn't gone willingly? What if they had been drawn by something more sinister? That night, as she stood out on her porch, watching the silhouettes of the trees twisting in an unseen wind, she heard Timmy's laughter again. This time, it felt different. It sent ice through her veins as the familiar warmth turned to terror. The sound echoed as if it were 1,000 voices converging. Her gut twisted in panic. What if the cave had claimed them, Timmy and Ethan both? She inhaled sharply, dread flooding her senses as her world tipped on the edge of an abyss. The darkness wrapped tightly around her heart, drawing her closer to an uncertain fate. Sarah stumbled back inside, her pulse racing. The laughter that had once filled her home now felt like a malicious taunt echoing through the halls. She shut the door behind her, locking it with trembling hands, but it offered little comfort. The sinister energy of the forest seeped through the cracks, brushing against her skin like icy fingertips. With the shadows creeping ever closer, she made her way to Timmy's room. He lay silent, his face pale beneath the pale moonlight filtering through the window. Her chest tightened as she watched him, wishing for just one sign that he was safe, untouched by whatever darkness loomed outside. She shook her head, shoving thoughts aside, the wild stories, the warnings. They felt too real now. Suddenly, a loud thump erupted outside, snapping her from her reverie. Her heart leaped into her throat as she gripped the edge of the doorframe. The noise came again, followed by the sound of leaves crackling underfoot. Someone or something was out there. Timmy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Mom? What's wrong?" She pressed a finger to her lips, rushing to his bedside. "Stay quiet, sweetheart." But the sounds continued, closer now, a haunting rhythm that accompanied Timmy's shallow breaths. Sarah felt a wave of urgency wash over her. She needed to protect him, to shield him from whatever prowled outside. "Can you stay here?" she whispered. He nodded, wide-eyed, clutching his blanket tightly as she slipped out of the room, moving with cat-like grace toward the back door. She peeked through the window. The night was alive with creeping shadows that seemed to dance to the rhythm of her fear. Just as she turned to retreat, something glimmered in the corner of her eye, a figure looming by the edge of the woods, half hidden behind an ancient oak. Her breath caught. Was it a hallucination? She blinked hard, but the figure remained, its outline shifting strangely, elongating and shrinking like a mirage. Instinctively, she fumbled for her phone, the screen casting a sickly glow against her trembling hands. She hesitated, pressing the camera button, fear gnawing at her gut. What if someone saw her? What would they think? But she needed proof, something to hold on to, something that might explain all of this. Just as she steadied her shaking hands, the figure shifted closer. Panic tightened her chest as she caught a glimpse of gleaming eyes watching her, unblinking. Her heart pounded. "Timmy!" she screamed, racing back into the house. The floor creaked beneath her weight as she frantically pushed open his door. "We need to go now." The room was empty. It felt like it had swallowed him whole. The air grew heavy, suffocating her as she gasped for clarity. Adrenaline surged. "Timmy!" she shouted, running through the dimly lit rooms. He had to be somewhere. He wouldn't leave her, not like this. Then she heard it, a soft whispering that seemed to pulse from the dark corners, wrapping around her like arms of despair. "Mommy, help me." The voice was faint, laden with a haunting familiarity. Terror clawed at her throat, but she wasn't ready to accept defeat. She followed the echo, her body screaming at her to turn back, to escape into the safety of the dark. But she couldn't. Not again. Not when Timmy needed her. As she reached the front door, it burst open. Ethan stood there, his face masked with shadows. A disorienting grin crept across his lips, something twisted glimmering in his eyes that made her stomach churn. "Where's Timmy?" She barely recognized her own voice above the pounding in her ears. Ethan chuckled softly, the sound chilling her to the bone. "He's where he belongs. They all are." Sarah felt her heart plummet. It couldn't be. The woods, the cave. A sickening realization dawned. There was no escape. "Come play with us," he whispered, stepping closer, the darkness swirling behind him, hungry and alive, and just like that, everything went black. What awaited her in the shadows? Was this just the beginning of a much darker journey? Sarah awoke gasping, her hands clammy against the cold wooden floor. Panic surged through her veins, but as her eyes adjusted to the dim glow of moonlight spilling into the room, the weight of her surroundings hit her like a freight train. She was still in her house, but the air felt thick and wrong, saturated with something sinister. "Timmy!" she cried, her voice muffled. There was no response. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She pushed off the floor, stumbling to her feet, adrenaline fueling her movements. The night felt alive, shadows creeping across the walls like predatory creatures. Timmy. She ran through the hallway, her bare feet slapping against the cool floorboards. The soft whispering she had heard before surged back into her ears, swelling louder, turning into a cacophony that reverberated through her mind. "Mommy, help me." Each inflection was a dagger, piercing through her thoughts. It pulled her onward, deeper into the darkness of her home, out of that insipid light. She skidded to a halt in the living room, her breath hitching as she barely caught sight of the curtains fluttering in the night breeze, like ghostly hands beckoning her. Should she call for help? Who would come? The neighbors? The friends? They wouldn't believe her. Could she trust anyone? The whispers seemed to materialize into forms, silhouettes shrouded in darkness, flickering just out of her line of sight. She shivered, every instinct told her to run, to flee, yet each step forward felt tethered to the ground like lead. Breathless, she peeked around the corner, glancing into the kitchen. The shadow loomed larger, a wave of darkness pooling in the corner, twisting and writhing. Her heart raced as she squinted, trying to make out its features. The unfamiliar silhouette looked almost human but distorted, an uncanny amalgamation of familiar faces, each morphing into the next. Was that Timmy's smile lost in the mix? She recoiled, warmth draining from her body. "Mom." The voice twisted around her, filled with despair. It surged from somewhere deeper, somewhere close yet horrifying. "Stay here, Timmy." She yelled, terror melding into rage. "I'm coming." She darted through the front door, propelled by desperation, her instincts blazing against the unseen danger. The chill clung to her skin, the air thick like fog. The sounds of the forest had betrayed her, knowing that her son lay helpless within its gnarled embrace. "Timmy!" She shouted again, her voice echoing off the trees, swallowed into the depths of the night. It seemed like the woods responded, rustling and shifting as if alive. It felt like the shadows were drawing nearer, hungry things waiting just beyond the realm of the flashlight beam. Suddenly, a flash of light caught her eye. She turned, staring into the inky blackness where the cave mouth gaped like a wound. The whispering rose again, a chorus beckoning her closer, urging her to step into its maw. "Mommy, help." Timmy's voice sounded clearer this time. Sarah's heart faltered. He was in there. A rush of dread flooded her, but determination spurred her feet forward toward the cave entrance. Just as she reached the threshold, something cold wrapped around her ankle like a serpent, pulling her back. She stumbled, falling onto the damp ground as she shot a terrified glance over her shoulder. Ethan stood there, his form impossibly twisted, a grotesque smile stretched across his face. "You shouldn't have come here, Sarah." Before she could muster a scream, she was yanked backward, deeper into darkness. Any flicker of light fought desperately against the encroaching shadows, but it was losing. "Timmy." "No." Her voice followed her into the dark, where all sound was devoured. Would she ever find him? Or was this cave home to more than she ever realized? The darkness pulsated, and then she heard it again, that sinister whispering. "Come play with us." What choice did she have? Did she dare to confront whatever evil lurked in the shadows, or would it consume everything she loved? The coldness snaked around Sarah's ankle, tightened its grip, pulling her deeper into the cave. The shadows swirled, devouring the feeble remnants of light, dragging her sanity along with it. She clawed at the ground, desperately pushing herself forward, but the darkness was relentless. Ethan's figure melted into the void, his grotesque smile still branded on her mind. "No, no. Get away from me." She screamed, each word a tremor against the weight of the night. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices colliding around her with a chaotic unity. "Stay, play, join us." Sarah racked her brain for any semblance of strategy. Panic ignited her thoughts. If Ethan was here, this had to be where he had taken Timmy. Her instincts, however, howled with fear. Every dark corner of the cave seemed to breathe, alive with unearthly malice that sent shivers down her spine. "Timmy!" she howled, panic cracking her voice. The flickering echoes seemed to mock her, a child's voice entwined in the chilling peace of terror. She forced herself up, racing through the narrow opening of the cave. The walls wept with moisture, slick and treacherous underfoot. The whispering voices surged and ebbed, like waves crashing mercilessly upon her. The tunnel twisted and turned, narrowing further until it spanned nearly shoulder width. Shadows flitted just at the edges of her vision, darting away every time she focused her gaze. Something was watching her, hungry. "Where are you, Timmy?" she pleaded, trying to summon hope amid the dread creeping like ivy around her heart. The cave responded with silence, stretching it out as if reveling in her fear. Then came the sound of laughter, a child's laughter echoing from somewhere far off. It was a laughter she recognized. Timmy. Her resolve reignited, she followed the sound, urgency overriding her instinct to retreat. "Mommy." There it was again, clearer this time yet filled with a strange playfulness that chilled her. Was it Timmy? Or a cruel mimicry emanating from something sinister? She plunged deeper into the labyrinth, the darkness clinging to her like a second skin. "Help me." Timmy's voice cracked, tinged with fear, and she sprinted toward it, wanting nothing more than to wrap her arms around him. But as she rounded a bend, she froze, her breath caught in her throat. The cave opened wide, revealing a horrific sight, ragged remnants of toys scattered around the floor, faded and broken, shards of innocence. At the center stood a gleaming figure, a shimmering outline that seemed to pulsate with light. It beckoned her closer, a grotesque mockery of comfort in the chaotic gloom. "Mommy, come play." Sarah's blood ran cold. She stepped back, heart pounding, but a sinister presence surged forward. "Come on, Sarah. You can't resist." The voice echoed in tandem with Timmy's, overlapping in a dissonance that tugged at her very soul. "Don't go to it." She screamed, but her words fell flat, swallowed by the encroaching shadows. Drawing closer, the figure morphed, twisting into a familiar face. Ethan's twisted smile reformed in the chaos. "5 souls, 5 have entered," his laughter mingled with the sinister whispers, "but only the brave leave." Panic flashed within her, a jarring reminder of her diminishing chances. She could not let this cave ensnare her and her son. On instinct, Sarah turned and bolted, the echoes of laughter and whispers clawing at her heels. Outside, the soft rustling of the forest whispered a promise of solace. But deep within, Sarah knew she wasn't free. The cave had unleashed something dark, and Timmy was still trapped within its depths. With a final push, she reached the cave's mouth, collapsing outside, gasping for breath. Yet, it was only a moment of respite. "Help me." Timmy's voice floated faintly on the breeze. Fear ignited anew as she realized that this was only the beginning. The cave had opened a door she never intended to cross, a door that demanded blood, betrayal, and sacrifice. What shadows awaited her in the chilling dark? Was anything really as it seemed? Would she rescue Timmy before it was too late? The night deepened, and the cave seemed to breathe behind her, whispering promises of the horrors yet to come. Sarah stumbled away from the cave, the dread clawing at her mind like a raccoon rummaging through garbage. She couldn't believe she had escaped, yet the weight of her own heart felt like a stone in her chest. The forest was alive with whispers, the wind rustling through the trees, a twisted mockery of serenity. "Timmy!" She called again, but the forest swallowed her cry. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Each rustle, each creak made her jump, her skin crawling as if unseen eyes were grazing her flesh. The night seemed darker now, expanding, consuming every fragment of light. Sarah's mind raced. The cave hadn't just let her go. It had fed her a false hope, a trick meant to keep her searching, straying further from her lost son. Help me, the voice floated like a ghostly whisper through the branches. Then it vanished, leaving Sarah in the grip of a crushing terror. Timmy. Panic surged anew. She turned back toward the cave, the only path leading to her son, but doubt flickered in her heart. What if it was too late? What if she was meant to join him in that darkness forever? Gritting her teeth, Sarah glanced at the mouth of the cave, the flicker of ethereal light still lurking beyond its entrance. There was nothing for it but to go back. Each step felt heavier than the last as she approached. The shadows morphed as she got closer, tendrils of darkness reaching out like fingers. She peered into the cave, stomach churning. "Come play," the taunting call echoed against the walls, vibrating in her ears. Through gritted teeth, she replied, "No. I'm coming for my son." Fighting against the cold creeping into her bones, she stepped inside. The cave swallowed her whole once more, and she understood the weight of despair that king and faith could impose. It was crushing. The laughter rolled like thunder, each echo a reminder of her failure. "You will never leave." Shadows danced around her, morphing into grotesque figures of children, faces distorted with glee, eyes wide and filled with malevolence. They moved like phantoms, darting in and out of the light, beckoning her into their chaotic dance. "No! Get away from me!" she yelled, her voice firm, though it wavered. She pressed forward, fear gnawing at her resolve, but her love for Timmy pulsed within her chest, a steady beacon guiding her deeper. "Join us, join us!" The voices rose in unison, as if calling to a darker nature that still lingered within her. Memories of laughter and joy painted fleeting images in her mind, overshadowed by the reality of this twisted remnant of childhood. She squeezed her eyes shut and pushed through, refusing to succumb. Timmy. It was then she felt it, a jolt beneath her feet, a tremor that shook the very core of the cave. Panic flared. Was something awakening? "Mommy." Timmy's voice cut through the darkness, urgent and raw. It pulled at her, equally urging and threatening. She raced toward the sound, each twist of the tunnel amplifying her dread, heightening the whispers and laughter, but as she rounded yet another bend, she was met with a sight that made her heart drop, a gathering of shadowy figures, echoes of the lost. For souls surrounded a shimmering figure that pulsated like a dying star, gleaming in shades of purples and greens. 5 souls, a rasping voice coiled through her, 5 souls that entered, only one leaves. Panic surged as she realized the truth. This was not just a cave, it was a collector of souls, a malevolent entity eager to devour all that wandered too close. "Timmy!" she screamed, fear gripping her throat. She lunged toward the glowing figure, desperation clawing at her. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a flash of golden hair among the shadows. "Mommy!" But before she could reach him, the shadows thickened, swallowing Timmy's fragile form. "Join us!" The voices crescendoed, and Sarah's heart raced. She spun on her heels, scrambling to escape this nightmare, but the cave's grip was tightening. The walls seemed to close in, breaths becoming short as the darkness pressed mercilessly around her. 5 souls, the whispers thrummed, growing louder, shaking her resolve. Would she become one of them? Would she be lost forever? A flicker of light danced just ahead, a flicker of hope, or was it another trap? Sarah hesitated, the weight of terror hanging thick around her. What awaited her with each step? Would she fight through the darkness to save Timmy, or was she merely walking deeper into a snare? In the chilling hush that followed, the shadows began to close in, familiar laughter taunting through the dark. The cave pulsed with a life of its own, shadows swirling like thick smoke as Sarah stumbled deeper into the abyss. Breathless, she wiped sweat from her brow, feeling the clammy dampness of the walls, slick and almost living beneath her fingertips. Every step echoed, mocking her solitude, sending her heart racing. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice called again, but now it was distant, faded. Panic surged within her chest. Was she running towards him, or away from the darkness that sought to consume her whole? The air thickened heavy with whispers, with promises of salvation and threats of despair. Help me. The words, familiar and sweet yet haunting, stirred an old memory, sending a shiver down her spine. Would he really need her help, or was this the cave's trick, wrapping her in hurtful nostalgia? The walls thrummed, pulsating with energy. Sarah swallowed hard, pushing her fear down. Timmy. I'm coming. I won't leave you. But there was no reassurance. Only echoes danced around her, weaving conspiracies that gnawed at her mind. Her heart raced, a relentless drum pounding with terror. The shimmering figure she had seen before flickered in her periphery, drawing her with its ghostly glow. Was it a vision of hope or another trap? She hesitated, glancing back toward the shadows that thickened like fog. A string of soft laughter tickled her ears. You have to play to stay. The voices wrapped around her like icy tendrils. They called to the recesses of her mind, whispering secrets she thought long buried. Go away. Body trembling, Sarah pressed forward. The cavern walls twisted, and shadows flickered like dying flames, darting closer, teasing her in a maddening rhythm. Her grip tightened on the jagged stone as her instincts kicked in the primal urge to survive, to protect. 5 souls. The cave seemed to breathe. Had she heard it correctly? An unsettling confirmation of her greatest fear echoed in her mind. 5 souls, locked in a wretched cycle of despair, destined to remain. Each new arrival served as nourishment for the malevolent force lurking deep within. Mommy. Timmy's voice sharpened, piercing through her thoughts like a knife. She bolted forward, desperation fueling her as she traversed the narrow, twisting path. The laughter shifted to cries, the sounds mixing into a disorienting chorus of pain and delight. What if she was too late? What if each piece of light that flickered before her was drawing her deeper into darkness, and then she saw it, a small figure huddled in a corner, illuminated by the shimmer. Mommy. Timmy looked smaller than she remembered, eyes wide with fear. Her body surged with a new kind of hope, pushing through the darkness as she pleaded, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. But as she reached for him, the shadows erupted, twisting into monstrous shapes, their laughter now ominous, a cacophony ringing in her ears. The very air seemed to grow thick and heavy, rippling around her as the walls of the cave tightened. Join us, flickers of memories danced like fireflies playing in the backyard, warmth, love, innocence. Was it real? Or just an illusion served with a heaping side of dread? No. She screamed, her voice shaking but resolute. She grasped desperately for Timmy, heart racing, eyes darting around the shifting dark. Would they become part of this twisted collection? Would she become just another shadow? At that moment, a low growl emanated from the depths of the cave, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Sarah froze. The cavernous heart stirred, and it was hungry. With a determined roar, she pushed back against the prying tendrils of the cave. But would that be enough? It was time for a choice, submit or fight, and what lay beyond this agonizing tension? As she lunged toward Timmy, the walls quivered, darkness looming. Would they escape the cave's clutches, or was this the very beginning of their twisted tale? The shadows hung still for a moment, and in that silence, the echo of a familiar laugh resonated, threatening to draw her back into the abyss. Timmy's eyes widened, reflecting the flickering light as he crouched in the corner. Mommy! He cried again, his voice cutting through the chaos surrounding them. And in that heart-stopping moment, the walls trembled, enraged by her defiance. Timmy, please! She begged, but her voice felt small against the sinister backdrop of the cave. The growl from the shadows grew louder, reverberating through her bones. It felt as if the cave was a living, breathing thing, testing her resolve. As she lunged forward, the darkness rippled, writhing like a serpent poised to strike. Tentacles of shadow snaked around her legs, tugging at her, their cold grip pulling her down. Each step towards Timmy sent a shiver of dread racing through her, but she would not falter. She refused to let him vanish into this nightmare. Let him go. She screamed, her voice raw, desperate. But the walls laughed, mocking her defiance with a cacophony of eerie, echoing sounds that twisted into distorted faces. They grinned with malice, embodiments of fear and sorrow, eyes hollow yet aware. 5 souls, the whisper returned, fainter now, but imbued with a threatening promise. But you're close, so close to joining them. Not today. She shouted, fighting against the weight of despair, the heaviness of expectation. Every inch she crawled toward Timmy felt like wading through tar, the shadows resisting her every movement. She reached for him, her fingertips almost brushing the soft fabric of his T-shirt. In a sudden surge, the shadows tightened around her waist, constricting like a noose. Panic flared through her chest, gripping agony cut into her flesh. She gasped, but the darkness only tightened, pulling her deeper into its clutch. The hideous laughter grew louder, spurring her forward. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice quivered with fear, his small frame shaking. She could see it now, a glimmer of his unbreakable spirit, shining bright. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm right here." Her words hung heavy with a mix of hope and dread. But as more tendrils lashed out, she felt a creeping realization, a web closing in with the intent of cocooning them both in eternal despair. The cavern seemed to exhale, a gust of cold air brushing against her cheek, as if sensing her wavering resolve. The shadows quivered with a life of their own, drawn to her fear like moths to flame. But within her, a fire ignited, fueled by the love she held for her son. "I'm coming!" she cried, her heart rebelling against the terror. She ripped away the veils of despair and dread, focusing on the warmth of Timmy's presence, the connection between mother and child that could slice through the dark. With a final surge of energy, she reached toward him. The shadows shrieked, a high-pitched wail reverberating through the depths, shaking the very foundations of the cave. She felt the pull of ancient horror trying to drag her down, but in that moment of clarity, it became clear she wasn't just walking toward Timmy. She was breaking the cycle, clasping Timmy's hand, her fingers intertwined with his. She pulled him toward her. The cave shuddered, panic coursing through the darkness. The shadows hissed, desecrated by the fragile bond of love they could not sever. 5 souls. Not you. They howled, and in that instant, the ground beneath them began to quake, the walls screaming with pent-up anguish. As they tore from the grasp of darkness, the shadows writhed, furious at the betrayal of their prey. But would they make it out alive, or would the cave's hunger consume them both? Dropped into chaos, the cave seemed to hold its breath, the shadows shaking with unfulfilled wrath. The air thickened around them, almost tangible, as Sarah fought to pull Timmy closer, feeling the hopelessness siphoning around them once more. "Run!" she shouted, and together they raced into the darkness, hearts pounding, minds racing. But behind them, ominous laughter bubbled through the gloom. As a wall of shadows surged forth, colliding like thunder, Sarah knew the final choice was yet to come. Would they reach the light, or would they forever be entangled in the cave's sinister grasp? And in that moment, with the walls threatening to close around them, Sarah could feel the weight of a violent secret shifting between them. Who or what had claimed the other 5? What awaited in the uncharted darkness? They dashed through the darkness, heartbeats pounding like war drums in their ears. The shadows loomed around them, an oppressive weight that seemed to swallow the very air they breathed. Each step felt heavy, and Sarah could feel the dark tendrils reaching for her, tugging at her clothes and sinking into her skin, as if the cave itself were trying to reclaim its lost prey. "Timmy, don't look back," she gasped, urging him forward. The threat behind them felt alive, pulsating with rage, as if it was more than mere darkness. It was a predator, hungry and vengeful. With a surge of adrenaline, she pushed harder. The cave twisted and turned, the walls shifting like a labyrinth intent on entrapment. Shadows danced at the corners of her vision, monstrous figures just beyond reach. The cacophony of whispers filled her head, growing louder with every step, a twisted symphony of regret and despair. 5 souls, it sang, echoing like a death knell. "We won TB5. She yelled back, her own voice drowning in the ghostly chorus. She could feel Timmy pulling ahead, long legs taking strides, his little shoes slapping against the cold stone. Just a little further, honey. We can do this. But the whispers escalated, rising into a manic crescendo. Moments turned into an eternity, the cave seemed to stretch endlessly. With every breath, the weight of despair grew thicker, nearly choking her. Timmy's small hand trembled in hers, his innocent trust fueling her own fight. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through the darkness. It flickered like a distant star amidst a storm, beckoning them like a siren. Relief washed over Sarah, but with it came a sickening twist in her gut. Was it truly salvation, or a trap set by the shadows? Mommy! The light! Timmy gasped, hope blooming in his voice. Keep running. We're almost there. Her heart raced faster, a desperate rhythm to match her growing panic. The light widened, revealing a shimmering exit at the cave's edge. But the darkness howled behind them, furious at their escape, a gut-wrenching sound that made her bones tremble. They surged forward, moving faster, the light now just a breath away. But as they neared, Sarah felt a cold sharpness brush against her back. The shadows were reaching, their pitch-black fingers stretching, ready to pull them back into the cold depths of despair. Timmy! She shouted, her voice tearing through the din. Hold on to me. Don't let go. The light engulfed them, a warm embrace that felt like safety, but an icy dread gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. Had they truly escaped, or had they only stumbled deeper into the cave's dark magic? With one final push, they burst forth into the light just to find themselves standing under a twisted grove of trees, gnarled roots betraying the ground beneath them. The forest was eerily quiet, the sun hanging low and the sky casting long shadows. For a moment, Sarah thought they were free, but her gut twisted as she looked around. Mommy! Timmy whimpered, clinging to her leg. Where are we? A chill crawled down her spine. The eerie tranquility enveloped them like a cruel joke, the woods holding secrets just as dark as the cave. Everything felt wrong. In the distance, laughter taunted them, light and airy but dripping with malice. Sarah's heart sank as she caught a glimpse behind the trees, faces half obscured, grinning wide, eyes gleaming with something terrible. Timmy! She breathed, panic ricocheting inside her. We have to keep moving. We can't stay here. What about the 5? Timmy asked, his voice a whisper, echoing fear. For he was right. They had escaped the cave, but at what cost? What was the secret of the 5 souls that lingered still in the dark? And as they stumbled further into the forest, Sarah knew the pursuit was far from over. In this new chapter of their nightmare, who or what awaited them next? The shadows shifted around the grove, twisting restlessly as if alive. Sarah felt a shiver crawl up her spine, a profound sense of foreboding settling in her gut. The laughter echoed again, high-pitched and mocking. It felt like the trees themselves were laughing at them, roots clawing at their ankles, holding them back, trying to prevent their escape from this nightmare. Mommy, can we go home? Timmy's small voice trembled as he looked up at her, eyes wide with fear, innocence clashing with the madness surrounding them. Not yet, sweetheart. We just need to find a way out. Her heart raced. The truth was, deep down, she was terrified that home might never be an option again. The trees loomed overhead, casting long, twisting shadows that reached towards them like greedy claws. The laughter grew louder, swirling around them like a storm. Sarah's skin prickled as she realized it wasn't just echoes of old voices. It was fresh. Life emanated from the forest, but it was a life that felt sinister and twisted. Stay close, Timmy. She pleaded, gripping his hand tighter. Thudding footsteps drew near. Heavy, slow, the sound was almost rhythmic. Sarah's breath quickened, adrenaline surging through her veins. She turned to face the forest, scanning for movement, heart pounding so loud she feared it would give away their position. Who's there? She called, voice quivering. Silence swallowed her question. Then, just beyond the trees, a figure slipped into view, cloaked in shadow. A flicker of pale skin gleamed where light brushed against it, eyes shining like two cruel stars. It stood still, a statue in this dreamlike nightmare, and just as quickly, it melted back into the dark. "Mommy, what was that?" Timmy whimpered, tree roots pressing against his small feet, as if the ground itself wished to bind them here. Sarah knelt to meet her son's frightened eyes. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving. We can't let it catch us." She held her breath, giving strength to her words even as dread twisted in the back of her mind. What had they summoned by escaping the cave? The trees whispered, leaves rustling with secrets she didn't want to hear. It felt as if the forest itself was alive, judging them, circling like a predator on the hunt. She stepped into the foliage, heart racing, but every direction felt wrong. The laughter rang out again, a hideous chiming sound that echoed through the trees, spurring her into a scurry. "Mommy, I don't want to run anymore," Timmy cried, his small legs trembling. "We can stop soon, I promise," she urged, but her own fear threatened to burst through her calm facade. How could she make that promise when she felt like they were nothing but bait in a trap set by the forest itself? They stumbled into a small clearing, the ground littered with fallen branches and shattered bones. The laughter stopped suddenly, replaced by an oppressive silence that felt heavy enough to crush them. "Look!" Timmy pointed toward the center of the clearing, where something glimmered faintly, a small mirror, half buried in the undergrowth. Inscribed around it were symbols deep and ancient, casting an ominous glow under the dying light. "What is it?" Sarah whispered, dread intertwining with curiosity. "I don't know, but it looks like it wants to show us something," Timmy said, eyes glazed over, entranced. Timmy's soft voice pulled at her, yet the instinctual warning bells rang louder in Sarah's mind. It might reveal something they were better off not knowing. But they had come this far, and fear gripped her. What if this was a way to uncover the key to survival? To escape this torment? "Timmy," she hesitated, the moment stretching unnaturally. "We should," but before she could finish, the mirror rippled, a dark reflection starting to emerge, drawing their gazes. And from the shimmering depths, four familiar faces surfaced, frozen in time, twisted in eternal agony. Sarah's breath stopped. What had they uncovered? Timmy gasped, his small fingers gripping her arm. "Mommy, why do they look like us?" The realization struck like lightning. They had entered the realm of the five. The shadows quivered, pulsing around them, thick with malice and hunger, as the laughter rose again, drowning out their thoughts. What had they awakened, and what horrors lay ahead in the sinister forest, waiting to be claimed? Sarah stood frozen, the cold steel grip of realization wrapping around her heart. The faces in the mirror morphed and twisted, each one a haunting reminder of what they might become if they didn't escape. She let out a shaky breath. "Timmy, we need to leave. Now." But as she turned to run, the very ground beneath them began to tremble, roots and vines surging forth as if the forest itself was angry at their defiance. A massive shadow loomed just beyond the trees, a figure too large, too grotesque, twisting like a nightmare. It was neither fully human nor monster, it was a part of the cave, a twisted echo of lost souls slinking into the forest, hungry for more. "Mommy, I'm scared," Timmy cried, clutching her hand. The energy in the air felt heavy, oppressive. She felt it too, a sickening desire to comply, to succumb to whatever darkness called from within the depths. "No!" Sarah shouted, yanking him closer. "We are not becoming part of this. We will fight." They sprinted towards the clearing's edge, dodging the gnarled branches reaching out to ensnare them. Behind her, laughter echoed through the trees, cruel and chaotic, a vile symphony of lost souls. "Come back!" they called, the voices overlapping, each whisper cold and sharp like broken glass. Panic clawed at her throat, but she shoved it down, focusing on the way ahead, the flicker of light piercing the canopy up ahead. "We have to get to the light," she urged, her feet flying over the gnarly roots, heart racing, driven by the fear of losing everything. "Mommy!" Timmy's breath came in quick bursts, the fear etched upon his small face tugging at her heart. I can't keep running. She knelt, their eyes meeting. You can. You're strong. Just hold my hand. With that, she grabbed his hand tighter, rediscovering the fierce bond between them, the connection anchoring her in the storm roiling around them. Together, they surged forward, the pain of the past driving them onward, the oppressive laughter morphed into screams as they neared the light, the shadows clawing back behind them. Anything that fell within the darkness felt the cave's hunger, but Sarah pushed. Do not look back, Timmy. We are almost there. The light widened, brightening their path, washing away the biting chill of despair. The atmosphere shifted, and for one breath, silence swept through the trees. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as if burned by the intensity of hope radiating around them. With a final push, they burst through the last thicket, tumbling into a clearing bathed in sunlight. The sunlight danced across the landscape like gentle hands promising safety. The laughter faded, dark tendrils slinking back toward the trees, but still an unsettling feeling nagged at Sarah's mind. Mommy? Timmy breathed, the sunlight bringing out the vibrancy in his cheeks. She crouched in front of him, wiping the sweat off his brow, soaking in the relief that washed over her. Did we make it? With trembling hands, she rested her palm against his cheek, swallowing the fear lodged in her throat. Yes, sweetheart. We made it. But even as she said the words, shadows flickered just at the edge of her consciousness, and her thoughts twisted into worrying whispers. What if the cave still lingered? What if the forest sought her back? Behind them, the trees rumbled ominously, shivers creeping down her spine. We need to get to town, Timmy. We need to tell everyone, she urged, taking his small hand in hers. Despite the warmth of the sun, a cold dread pressed at her back, dragging her thoughts into darker places. As they walked away from the clearing, eyes darting back at the ominous silhouettes in the woods, Sarah knew the truth. Though they had escaped the cave, the shadows now held a weight within them, a darkness that would follow, whispering against the edges of her consciousness, waiting for the moment of weakness to slip back inside. But for now, as she led Timmy down the path toward town, she felt the strength of their bond, the power in their love, shining bright against the encroaching dark. They no longer would run from shadows, they would stand against them. For the rest of the world, they would warn of the cave, a darkness that could devour even the brightest hearts. Yet, as they reached the edge of town, a chill swept across her, a reminder that they were not truly free. The direction of their lives had shifted forever. And, with that, they would fight to protect what was theirs together, against whatever haunted the forest, whatever lingered just beyond the line of sight. As they turned toward the familiar homes, casting anxious glances back into the depths of the woods, Sarah whispered into the wind, "You will not have us. You will never take my son." And in that moment, as they walked further away, shadows stretched behind them, waiting. But not today. Stay tuned for more exclusive stories like this one. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next heart-stopping tale. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this shocking ending. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it all ends. Your support makes all the difference.